Nityam yada bhutare swayam rupakaramayam darati swaparadikam. Vandeham Sri Siyata Parakamaram Shikirun Vaishnavam Scha Sirupam Sagatatam Sahagana Ragaratam Pitam Stam Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishikan Vitam Scha Namao Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivashesa Sanyavadi Paskada Desara Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. This is a good topic, especially during a pandemic, because I think we're all feeling pruned, aren't we? Cut back, maybe in terms of our mobility, in terms of our income. And even though we're spending more time than with our families than ever before, and that's good, sometimes it gets a little claustrophobic being with the same people within the same four walls for so many hours. So I thought the analogy of Krishna as the gardener would be very appropriate to our times. Those of you who have land, I know in Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and here even in Utah, we have 15 acres of land in Spanish Fork and then 4 acres of land in Salt Lake City. There's a lot of trees and shrubbery. And if you don't take care to prune it at least once every other year in the spring, the growth will get out of hand. Sometimes we bring in a landscaper or a professional gardener to prune our trees, and he's been out there for a few hours, and we come out to check on the progress at work, and we're shocked. You took everything. I asked you to prune the tree, not to completely denude the tree. There's nothing left. You've destroyed the tree. Anybody ever had that experience? But then what does the gardener tell you? He says, well, hold on, chill, just wait and see. And sure enough, before long, that tree is much better looking. It comes back looking much better than it did before it was pruned. So in the same way that trees need pruning from time to time to remove dead branches or areas where there's overgrowth, but we also need to be pruned or reshaped at different times in different areas in our lives. And if we look on this pandemic as beneficial to us, a pruning process whereby we'll come out the other end better than we were before, if in all of this we keep Krishna first place and keep a good attitude and pass the test, then it's a very positive period of time in our lives and the lives of our families. But I'll admit it, that when you're going through the pruning, it seems not only are you not going forward, but it seems like you're going backwards. Before the pandemic, we were doing so good. Business was strong. I was up for promotion. Family was happy. Kids were going to their classes every day. We were free to move about on the weekends. And we just knew that when everything was going our way, we had Krishna's favor. But then February, March, April, it seemed like a vice just closed more tightly and more tightly and more tightly around our necks. You know, the disease went worldwide. There were lockdowns, businesses closed, there were layoffs. We had to start from working from home. We lost some of our clients. Our child can no longer go to school in person. Our friends, we aren't as close with them, not having physical contact as we once did. We wonder, whoa, what happened? Seems like we got the wind knocked out of our sails, or seems like we got all of our branches pruned. And there's a tendency to wonder, what did I do to deserve this? What did I do wrong? Krishna, why? Why Krishna? But our message today is that just because you're having difficulties and things are happening to you that you don't understand, doesn't mean that you're outside of Krishna's best plan for your life. God is all powerful. He's omniscient, pantashtu koti satavatsara pragamyo Vaira tapi manasya. He's within the heart, he's within the atom. Andantarashta paramanu charantaram. Nothing happens that's a surprise to Krishna. He's ordering our steps, and right now, just like we have seasons of growth, now it's a pruning season. It has to be both. You can't just grow, grow, grow. You have to be cut back sometimes in the interests of more symmetrical, more dynamic growth. Without the cutbacks, we wouldn't become who we were created to be. And if you review your history and you look back over your life, you'll see that it was in the cutback seasons that your character came up higher. It's during the cutback seasons that you began to take spiritual life more seriously. Krishna would not allow cutbacks if they weren't going to work for your good. And they're uncomfortable. We don't understand why they come. You lost your promotion. Maybe you lost some of your clients. You lost physical relationships with your friends. You lost so many opportunities during this cutback. But Krishna wouldn't have let you lose something if he wasn't going to give you something better. When one door closes, we interpret that to mean that Krishna's got a bigger, better door that he's going to open for us in the future. We just have to keep him first place. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He may have pruned a friend out of your life. Well, there's a better friend coming. You may have lost a job. There's a better job on the way. You may have suffered a setback in your health. Better health is in your future. Don't be discouraged by the cutback. It's just a sign that new growth is coming. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now we know from our experience with our landscapers and gardeners that if they're dead branches that don't produce fruit, those need to be cut away because nourishment is diverted to those dead branches, and that inhibits the potential for growth of the live branches, leaves, fruits, and flowers. And that makes sense. And when we have things in our life that aren't productive, maybe a friend's pulling us down, a job's dead-ended us, it makes sense to cut those things away, to walk away from them so that we can put our attention and focus on the things that are fruitful, the things that are moving us forward. And we can understand, it makes perfect logical sense to cut back or lose something that hasn't been adding value to our life. However, it's not quite as easy to understand the cutback of branches that are bearing fruit. That is more difficult to process. There are branches that are bearing fruit, and you would think they should be left alone. But you see your landscaper is not only cutting away the dead branches, the fruitless ones, but he's cutting away a major proportion of the fruit-bearing branches as well. Why are you doing that? If it's not broken, don't fix it. But what the landscape knows that you perhaps don't know is that you even sometimes have to cut back the fruit-bearing branches so that when they return, they'll be even more fruit-bearing by a factor of 3 or 4 times. So there may have been things that we lost in the last few months during the pandemic that doesn't make sense. They were adding value to our lives and the lives of our children. They were fruitful. But here's what you have to do. You have to be okay with not understanding everything that God's doing because his ways are not our ways. This is where faith comes in. This is where we learn to trust him. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Even though it doesn't make sense to us, how do we react? We're going to work with the right attitude. We're helping our co-workers, being a mentor to the newer ones. We're raising our family. We're doing the right thing, even when it seems like the wrong thing is happening. We're not discouraged. We don't slack off. We don't lose our passion. We recognize and embrace the fact that it's a pruning season, and we look forward to the new growth that's going to come when we get through the other side. Of course, before the pandemic, we were satisfied where we were. We were satisfied. We were comfortable. We were hoping that the boat didn't get rocked. No one was praying, Lord, send us a pandemic, send us political divisiveness, send us all this discontent and vituperation between fellow Americans. No one prays for that. Everybody, if they're doing good and they're happy and satisfied and comfortable, if you pray for anything, you pray to keep the status quo. But you may be satisfied with a good life, but Krishna is not satisfied because he doesn't want just a good life for you. He wants a great life for you and your family. He loves you too much to let you miss your destiny in a comfort zone. He's got new levels up ahead of you. So now you have to ask yourself, are we going to trust him in the cutback seasons? Will we keep doing the right thing? Keep having a good attitude, even in times of pruning, when things seem to be going backwards? Will we get discouraged, or will we maintain encouragement? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, whoever renders service to me is a friend, and I am a friend to him. So Krishna promises that his devotees will bear fruit, more fruit, and better fruit. The way to that abundance is to simply serve, trust, love, shelter, and have a good attitude. When things happen that we don't understand, that don't make sense, 99% of the people are going to get bitter. 99% of the people are going to slack off. 99% of the people are going to disconnect. But you are not 99% of the people. Manusyanam sahasreshu yashit katita yatatanam apisidanam kashchid mam meditatparaha. Unlike 99% of the people, including even so-called religious people, you're going to use this pruning season as an opportunity to increase, to ratchet up your trust in the Lord. And if you can believe, even in this time, that he's still directing your steps, if you can keep connected, even when it's not fair, if you'll stay faithful instead of getting frustrated, give yourself a pat on the back. It means you're passing the test. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Heard a story about an author named Henry Mitchell. He visited a region in California, probably the Napa Valley, that's home to some of the world's finest vineyards. And his eye was caught by rows and rows and rows of vines that had just been pruned. It was depressing. All that was left of the once beautiful grapevines were rows of ugly-looking stumps and a few of what they call runners stretching from each one of those stumps. Mitchell remarked to his tour guide, "This looks disastrous. This looks like a nuclear bomb landed amongst these grapevines." And the guide answered him, "Not to worry. We cut back every vine every 3 years before it's allowed to yield fruit for that season." For these vines, it was the 3rd year. Just wait a few months and you will see grapes as big as ping pong balls. Now that's a mouth-watering image, wouldn't you agree? Grapes that are so full of juice and so healthy and so luscious, they're the size of ping pong balls. But there's also a lesson here for us. No pruning, no cutting back, no luscious fruit, no grapes the size of ping pong balls. And so now It's up to us during these tough times to prove to Krishna that we're not going to lose faith, that we're not going to lose trust, that in good and bad, rain or shine, happiness and distress, honor and dishonor, no matter what, we're going to keep our connection to Krishna, even during the cutback seasons, with the faith, with the excitement, and with the anticipation that in the future he's going to release unto his faithful devotees much fruit, take you to where you could not go on your own. But we're not going to see those new levels without going through seasons of losing, things that we don't understand, uncomfortable periods. There'll be seasons when what worked for us in the past is no longer working. Book distribution, for instance, going out physically, face to face, mingling with people, it's not working like it did in the past. Don't be discouraged. Cutback is part of the process. We'll find new ways to move forward, new ways to preach, new ways to distribute books. I think you'll agree that during the lockdown period, ISKCON has exploded. At least that's my impression. Maybe I'm partial or biased. But I personally, I don't know, maybe I was too busy or going here and there. But now that I've been staying back for the last few months, not doing festivals, not traveling, I'm discovering treasure troves of programs conducted by ISKCON devotees on the internet. It's like finding the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Radhika Raman, Madhavananda, Gauranga, so many wonderful Nectarine, Radhanath Swami programs that practically you can't even decide, amongst 3 or 4 excellent programs on each and every day, which one I'm going to do. So sometimes things that haven't been working and that have been working are no longer working. But that's okay. It's all part of the process. It's a sign that new growth, new avenues, new methods are going to emerge. It's tempting for most of the people to think that God was favoring us up until March. But since March, the devil now has gotten hold of the pruning shears. I'm here to tell you, no, Maya didn't eclipse God. She didn't trump Krishna. He's still directing your steps. He's still in control. We may not like the cutback. It may not make sense, but this is what faith is all about. Krishna, I don't understand it, but I trust you. I know you wouldn't have allowed it if you didn't have a purpose. And I want to thank you that according to your promises in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm not just going to come out, but I'm going to come out of this better than I was before. And I just wonder how many times in our lives we're fighting what Krishna's trying to do. And I believe in standing against sickness and addictions and dysfunction, but every difficulty is not the enemy. Krishna is the gardener. Krishna is pruning us, cutting things back in our lives, not to limit us, but to get us prepared for new growth. Perhaps today you're feeling sad or discouraged over something that you've lost recently, something that didn't work out recently. Are you thinking that the enemy, Maya, is hindering you when in fact it's the hand of Krishna? Yashaham anugrahame harishe tad dhanam sani. A lot of people in India, they're hesitant to worship Krishna. They say, look what happened to the Pandavas when they worshiped Krishna. They lost everything and went into the forest for 13 years. But just look at the whole story. Don't just look at the beginning of the movie. Look at how the movie ended. They got their kingdom back. They got all their enemies removed. All the thorns were removed from their side. And they enjoyed sovereignty. They enjoyed the favor, the abundance, the blessings of Krishna twice as much as before the troubles happened. And at the end of their lives, they went back to home, back to Godhead. But don't give Maya too much credit. She can't touch you without Krishna's permission. Of course, we all believe that God's directing our steps when everything's going our way and good things are happening. It's easy to thank Him in the harvest seasons, the growing seasons, the promotion seasons. But in the pruning seasons, you have to dig down a little deeper. Your praise, your faith, love, and trust in the pruning seasons carries more weight. There's more of an opportunity to get blessings and make spiritual advancement in the pruning seasons, in fact, than there is in the harvest seasons. And we've all been cut back now. And Krishna is saying to us, watch where you're going to be this time next year. If you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, in the cutback season, watch the people, connections that are going to come into your life next year. Look out for the opportunities and the new doors that are going to open in the future. You are guaranteed in so many ways and shapes in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna that a year from now, a year and a half, 2 years from now, you will not be complaining about the cutback. You'll be saying, thank you, Lord, for that season. Thank you for that pruning. Thank you for building me up. Thank you for getting me prepared. Thank you for taking me to new levels. Another thing you have to watch out for is thinking that because there are cutbacks now, it's because you did something wrong. It's not because Krishna has forgotten about you. Krishna nipped out for a little break. It's just a test. A test to see whether you will abide in Him. When other things are crutches, supports, the economy, the job, mobility, when these things are knocked away, Krishna wants to see how much you've been leaning on Him, how much you're going to stay in faith. Even though you're not comfortable, even though we don't like these pruning seasons, we can recognize by practical application of Krishna consciousness, they are a part of the process. They will lead to much fruit. You cannot move forward without first having been cut back. And if you don't understand this principle, you're going to be frustrated and your progress in Krishna consciousness is going to be hindered. Well, true, I come every Sunday. I volunteer. I'm always cheering people up. But now I'm the one that's down. I had a bad break. Well, that's not the enemy trying to stop you. That's Krishna getting you prepared for new levels. The Mahatmas, the great souls, never ever throughout the entirety of the scriptures, you can comb them from front to back, never will you find a quote by any of the great souls, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, the Kumaras, where they ask Krishna, tell me if I'm wrong, where they ask Krishna to remove their difficulties. Isn't it? What did they all commonly, universally pray for? Not that the difficulties be removed, but they prayed that they be able to endure whatever came their way. Satatam yuktanam bhajatam pri dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam ubhyantite mahatmanastu mambar devim prakritim vadanti ananya manasho gatva bhutinam avyayam. Always ananya manaso, always thinking of Krishna, serving Him, glorifying, honor Him, thick and thin, rain or shine. Those are the characteristics of the Mahatmas. Some things in life, we just have to learn to endure them. They're not going to be removed. Krishna loves us too much to let us sail through life in the comfort zone. So we never grow in conditions of comfort. We always grow when there's opposition. Just like you go to the gym, You never build your muscles by sitting in the jacuzzi. You have to do what's called resistance training. And it's through the resistance that your muscles build. So it's through resistance that we build spiritual strength, not through comfort. In fact, someone went so far as to say, if things in your life are really, really, really comfortable, there's no opposition, you're going downhill. The trick to enduring opposition, challenges, dark periods, is to know that they're not permanent. The way to endure it is to know that there is an end to it and you're going to come out better than you were before. Just keep reminding yourself that cutback is leading to new growth. And when you go through cutbacks, losses, and things you don't understand, just remind yourself it's not Maya, but it's Krishna who has the pruning shears. When he's pruning you for a temporary period of time, you're going to have less joy, less strength, less resources, temporarily. But if you keep trusting, then that cutback is leading to much fruit. Krishna would not have allowed it if his plan wasn't to bring you out better, stronger, wiser, with new growth. I ran across a poem recently about how we should learn to trust Krishna in all circumstances. Actually, it's two poems. Maybe I could share it with you. If I can remember it. My life is but a weaving between my Lord and me. I cannot choose the colors, but he worketh steadily. He often weaves sorrow, and I in foolish pride forget he sees the upper, and I the underside. Not until the loom falls silent and the shuttle cease to fly will Krishna unroll the canvas and reveal the reasons why. The dark threads are as needful in the weaver's skillful hand as are the threads of gold and silver in the pattern that he has planned. So we're all in a cutback season now. We're wondering how we went from doing good to where we are. Everything was great. We were doing our best previously, but now it looks like we've all lost ground. And that may be true, but the loss is not permanent. What you can't see is that cutback is setting you up for new levels. We're about to come into a season of much fruit, a season where you see increase like you've never seen it before. We're about to come into good breaks, promotions, and relationships that are better than they ever have been in the past. The cutback that we may be tempted to be disappointed about now, if you'll just keep connected, keep thanking Krishna, keep being your best, one day you'll look back with me and saying, Krishna, thank you. Your ways are better than our ways. You could see things that we couldn't see. I'm glad I trusted you in the cutback season. I'm glad I believed that you are directing my steps. I'm glad I remembered that the pruning shears were always in your hand. I heard a story about a devotee family. The woman had just given birth in the hospital. She'd been told that there were, quote, problems with the birth. The doctor appeared and he said to the parents, you have a new baby boy, but there are some problems. He told them that your child has been born with Down syndrome. And he also indicated that the baby had a correctable respiratory and heart condition. So he hinted to the parents that if they wanted to get rid of the problem, that they could do nothing to correct the respiratory system and the heart, not do this minor surgery and let nature take its course. And by way of convincing them along this path, he told them, studies show that parents who keep these Down syndrome children have a high incidence of marital distress and separation. Then he tried to make the mother feel guilty by asking her this question: is it fair for you to bring this sort of suffering on your other two children? And at the mention of the word suffering, the devotee said, our two children and ourselves have had every comfort and every advantage in the world today. We've never really known suffering. We've never really had the opportunity to know it. I see Krishna's hand in this. I see why it would be within Krishna's plan to give us a child like this to be born into our family. Our other two children will grow through this. They'll do just fine. And when you think about it, it's a great opportunity. Doctor, I'm not persuaded by your arguments. On the contrary, please arrange for the corrective surgery. This is the 1% as opposed to the 99% who don't trust that God is directing our steps. This is the 1% of devotees who want to remain connected with God and recognize that to be connected with God means up as well as down. It means rain as well as shine. Unfortunately, most people like that doctor take the path of least resistance, the easy way out. But people of faith know that Krishna can use all things for the good of those who love him. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When you understand the pruning shears are in your loving Father's hands, when you know he wouldn't cut you back without a purpose, that whatever he takes away temporarily, he does it only so that he can bring you out with more, then you're not going to fight the cutback seasons. You're not going to get bitter. Oh, Krishna, I was doing my best. Why did you do this to me? Why did this happen? That 1%, the devotees with firm faith, trust their Father. Trust that he's in control of the cutbacks, that he would not have taken you backward unless the plan was to bring you out with much fruit. I heard about a boy. He went to a contest for homemade racing cars sponsored by the Scouts. One of those events where the contestants are supposed to do their own work, but everybody knows that the fathers help out their kids more than they should. And at one event, a young boy showed up with no dad and a racer that he had, in fact, obviously made by his own unskilled hands. Compared to the other vehicles, it looked pretty shoddy. So the way the contest was managed, the boys pitted themselves in pairs, one against the other, on a downhill course, and the winner of each heat would advance to the next round in a series of eliminations. Some or other, this one boy, funny-looking car, won against the much more expensive, sophisticated, streamlined cars again and again and again, until, defying all odds, he was in the finals against another boy with a slick-looking, well-made, well-engineered racer. Now, before the championship race, the boy with the funny-looking homemade car asked the director to wait a moment before they began so that he could pray. The crowd, who was enthralled by the unlikely underdog story unfolding before them, stood in silence, loving the boy and secretly praying with him that he might win. He just seemed so deserving. After the boy won the race and received the trophy, the director said, "Well, I guess it's a good thing you prayed so you could win." "Oh, no," the boy protested, horrified to have been thus misunderstood. "I didn't pray to win. That would have been wrong. The other boy had as much right to win as I did. I couldn't pray that God would make me win and him lose. I just prayed that God would keep me from crying if I lost. Would you agree with me that that boy had a great connection to God, just as a healthy branch has a healthy connection to the vine or to the tree? We learn from this boy that life is not about asking God for us to win the race, for God to fulfill our limited desires. And when we get too caught up in ourselves, then the Lord comes to prune us for the purpose of cleansing our relationship with him. Pruning is about keeping open the lines of communication between ourselves and Krishna so that we're nourished in Krishna's presence. Cheto darpanam marjanam baba devagni nirvapanam srira kaira vichandikaranam vidyavadu jivanam. Chanting the holy names cleanses the heart, extinguishes the flames, breaks the chains, blesses the earth at large with moonlight rays, discharging waves of nectar our senses been craving since ancient days. The holy names put all their blessings to shame. Krishna Govinda chanted anywhere, everywhere. The mercy Shakti is fully there, a divine app to restore our mental software, zap the malware, restart our heart, tap the reservoir of loving care. No hard and fast rules, no lessons, no schools. The bliss of bhakti in pure love awakening. Pruning is about keeping those lines of communication open. It's about allowing Krishna to give us spiritual nourishment so we can bear fruit. And I've learned that Krishna's idea of fruit may be different from our idea of fruit. If you think that you were blessed before the pandemic, that everything was good, good house, good family, good job, good kids, I'm here to tell you, you haven't seen anything yet. What Krishna has in mind for you is not good, but great. It's so much more than you could ever imagine. You should see what Krishna has in store for you as soon as you do your part of getting connected, not putting your selfish desires, not coming to the temple, the church, and the mosque with your shopping list, but presenting yourself before the deity saying, you are Lord, I am servant. How can I serve you? How can I keep that connection and tighten that connection and firm up that connection through service? For that young boy with the race car, winning had nothing to do with the race and everything to do with staying connected with God. One poet said, my orders are to fight, then if I bleed or fail or strongly win, what matters it God only doth prevail. The servant craveth not except to serve with might. I was not told to win or lose, my orders are to fight. Shubho shubho farerenam mokshase kama sanyasya kamayuktanam vimuktam mam upasyati. Krishna says the same thing to Arjuna. The point is not win or lose, happiness and distress. The point is always remain connected, yoga yukta, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the 12th canto, 36th chapter, 37th verse, it is said by Prabhupada in the purport, in the absolute world, there is no such thing opposing elements. So here, Krishna is talking about absolute duty, labho labho. When there is loss or gain, you are equipoised, you are serene, you are the same. Prabhupada says, generally, when there's gain, we're jubilant. And when there's loss, we become morose. But in this verse, Krishna is teaching that you remain in one position, either loss or gain, victory or defeat, happiness and distress, shuka dukkha sama kritva, labho labho jaya jiro tato yojaya shasha, nevam papmi bapshati. This equanimity is called Brahma Bhuta Prashan Atma. We need to do our part and do our best to keep connected, to keep being faithful. Instead of getting frustrated during the difficult times, Continue to do your best, take the high road, do the right thing, even when the wrong thing is happening. Thank Krishna through the disappointments, through the loss, through the times that don't seem fair. You'll keep connected. At a certain point, inevitably, you're going to come out of the cutback season, into a growing season, out of not having enough, into having more than enough. We all know the name of Steve Jobs, one of the most brilliant minds of our generation. Founded Apple Computer, it grew larger and larger. He became more and more successful, but over the years, there began to be conflict with his board, and eventually they voted him out. He was fired from the very company that he founded. Certainly didn't seem fair. Steve could have come bitter, he could have become upset, but instead, we all know this story. He went out and founded another company. That other company became so successful that a few years later, Apple bought that company, brought him back, and put him back as the CEO. And he said, if I had not been fired by Apple, I would never have developed those skills that made me who I am today. Folks, Krishna knows what he's doing. He's not going to let you go through a cutback without a purpose. It may look like a bad break, but if you'll keep the right attitude, you're going to see how it's all going to play out to your advantage. He knows when to take something away. And it's not to limit us. It's only to promote us. If that person left you, it wasn't an accident. Their part in your story was over. Krishna pruned them. Now keep moving forward. If that project didn't last, it wasn't supposed to. Krishna closed that door. Now don't sit around discouraged thinking, poor old me. Like Steve Jobs, you're being pruned to bear much fruit. Get ready for the new thing that Krishna is about to do. Get ready for new levels of favor, new levels of abundance. The word for prune in Greek and Roman is the same as the word that is used for clean elsewhere. And what Krishna is doing is cutting away or cleaning away the bad or the mediocre so that it doesn't get in the way of the good or the great. When God goes a little deeper and cuts out the good, it's in order that it not inhibit the growth of the best. Let me tell you something that you already know. Pruning is painful. Pruning is cutting. Pruning hurts. But keep in mind that whenever the gardener is pruning the branch, it is because he considers the branch important. And he wants the branch to maximize its harvest, its output. Listen carefully. The fact that Krishna is active in your life tells us that we matter. Get sometimes the idea that troubles, trials, and heartaches and difficulties are a sign that Krishna doesn't care. Just the opposite. They're signs that Krishna does care so much. Krishna is the master gardener. Krishna would never allow anything to come into your life that he hasn't designed as a means of making you the most that you can be and enable you to do the most that you can do. Sometimes the favor of God is disguised as a cutback. And it takes us to rise to the level of maturity to distinguish between the enemy trying to stop you and the gardener at work. We're often discouraged by what Krishna has ordained. Prabhupada, as you know, when he came to America, he tried to get help from wealthy industrialists back in India. He tried to get help from the Indian government. He tried to get help from his own missionary society, the Gaudiya Math. And everywhere he turned, doors were slammed in his face. Finally, he wrote these letters to his God brothers back in India. So the controversy is now closed, and there's no need of help from anyone else. We are not always successful in our attempts at preaching work, but such failures are certainly not ludicrous. In the absolute field, both success and failures are glorious. If Krishna consciousness were to ever take hold in America, Prabhupada was now recognizing that it would have to be without assistance from the Indian government or Indian financiers. Not even a lone Indian brahmachari would join him. Krishna was thus, through this pruning process, revealing his plan to Prabhupada in a different way. With all the schemes of getting support from India now behind him, Prabhupada would turn all his energies towards young men and women coming to him in his Bowery loft. There's times when Krishna will take you backwards before he thrusts you forward. And that cutback season is a test, seeing what you're going to do when you have a bad break, when it doesn't work out. You worked hard, but the business didn't make it. You were good to that person, but they walked away. What you do in the pruning season is going to determine whether you stay stuck there or whether you move forward and come out better. I think you'll agree with me, we all want the much fruit. The question is, are you willing to go through the process? Will you do the right thing in the times of pruning when things don't make sense? When the door is closed because where you are, it's too small? Krishna wants something bigger for you, something more fulfilling. Krishna's dream for your life is much bigger than your own dream. Krishna's idea of much is different from our idea of much. Our message is to trust him in the cutback seasons. We're not going to understand everything that happens along the way, but we understand this, that Krishna knows what's best to us. That's why scripture says his ways are not our ways. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You give him your might. You give what you have to Krishna, then he gives what he has to make the best life for us and our family members. It may not be what we thought we wanted, but it will be exactly what we need, and it will be greater than anything we could have thought of or imagined. We're all in a time of pruning. We've all had cutbacks. We feel like we're going in the wrong direction. There's a temptation to be discouraged. Recognize that Krishna is getting you in position for new growth. He wouldn't have pruned you if he didn't have something better. Now do our parts. Keep connected. Keep thanking him. Keep trusting him. Keep staying faithful. If you do this, the cutback is not permanent. You're going to come into much fruit, abundance, promotion, breakthroughs, the fullness of your destiny in this life and next life, back to home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Any questions or comments?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful Krishna Katha and how you basically shared that how we should deal with the reversals in life and the pruning, and how to have a complete paradigm shift in the consciousness of when we are going through a difficult phase, which we may not like to go. So it was such a pure nectar. So thank you so much for this wonderful, amazing transformation of consciousness in the times of pruning. So at this point, a lot of devotees have questions, and it's 10 a.m. So we'll try to keep the question answer brief. So we'll start with Bhaswati Mataji, then Vamsilas Prabhu, and then Kumar Prabhu. Yes, please start.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, very nice lecture. Prabhuji, so what learned today is how we have to be positive with whatever going on. That is all Krishna's plan for our betterment. So I have a question about one Mataji, devotee Mataji. She is suffering from COVID from more than 160 days. After COVID, she has following disease. how we can explain, Prabhuji, that circumstances is that Krishna is cleaning up all her sins so that she can go back to Prabhupada's feet. Prabhuji, can you please explain how we can explain that fact?
Well, you just said it. You just answered your own question. Krishna is purifying us.
Okay, Prabhuji.
You know, the beautiful thing about Krishna consciousness is that everything doesn't necessarily work out in this lifetime. You know, if you're talking about Ganga Set, I think at least you're talking about someone comparable. I saw the interview between Gopal Bhatta and Ganga. She's now, I think, almost 200 days. Young girl, 32 years old, a lifelong devotee, born a vegetarian, dances, very active, healthy otherwise. And this may be who you're referring to, it may not be. But how do we understand that? And the answer is we don't. We don't, you know. We don't. Remember I said, my life is but a weaving between my Lord and me. I cannot choose the colors, but he works steadily. He often weaves sorrow, and I in foolish pride forget he sees the upper and I the underside. Not until the loom falls silent and shuttle ceases to fly. So, you know, all we know, 32-year-old young girl, lifelong devotee, vegetarian, always served Krishna. But it says, not until the loom falls silent and the shuttle ceases to fly. God's not done. We're in the middle. And the middle is going to be the time of testing, is it not? When you went to school, what did midterms mean? What did that mean?
I'm still preparing for the final exam.
Yeah, it was tough. You didn't understand, you know, you studied, you went to class. Why? I didn't like it. Why do we have to have tests? You know, I'm doing everything I'm asked for. I'm taking notes. I'm absorbing the material. I'm going to class. Why tests? Why are they necessary? Well, apparently the teachers think they're necessary after hundreds and hundreds of years of experience of educating young people. The teachers have determined that tests are an integral part of the process. As a student, I never accepted that. I never came to terms with that. But at the same time, I had to trust that the teachers knew what they were doing. So what you described is in the middle, but it says, not until the loom falls silent and the shuttle ceases to fly will Krishna unroll the canvas and reveal the reason why. The dark threads are as needful in the weaver's skillful hand as are the threads of gold and silver in the pattern that he has planned.
Okay, thank you.
The answer is you don't have an answer. You have to trust him.
Thank you. I think Bhadra Prabhu wants to share a comment. Please, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Dandavad Charu Prabhu. Dandavad. This is Bhadra. That's my daughter. You talk about Ganga. That's my daughter. I would like to have her listen your lecture today. I'm going to have it done. I will have her listen this lecture so she can get encouragement. Thank you.
Thank you also for your comment. Good to see you, Bhadra, my old friend.
Nice to see you.
So Prabhuji, I'm sorry, I think kind of missed. She's going through the COVID, and that's the interview, or.
Yes. She had the test. She came positive in March, and after that we all were tested. We all were negative in the family, because if one person is positive, then they wanted to have done test on everybody. So we all were negative, and she is still negative, but she is going through she cannot do is, March means it's already for more than 5 months, and she cannot get out of it. Anything she does, she gets just tired, or she has no energy. So there is a side effects, and she is dealing with a whole group of the people in the United States, and she is in part of that group, and they discuss. And there are many people are having these difficulty side effects of this disease, and it's difficult. So that's why our Prabhuji had arranged an interview with her, and it was on Dandvat and everywhere. So that's what it is. Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you, Prabhu. We're praying for her full recovery. Just a follow-up question on this kind of situation. Almost everyone in life goes through some difficulties. If not now, in future or in the past, loss of a dear one, health situation, etc. So at that point, what one is such an emotional or trauma that one is in no mood to understand all these things. And because one is going through such a difficult period, which only that person can fully understand, the one who is going through. Even in a very, very advanced soul, that they're completely kind of equipoised. But I would say sadhakas or aspiring devotees. So at that point, is it encouraged to share philosophy that Krishna is the pruner and is the gardener, or at that point is it a better idea to kind of give them a shoulder to cry?
Sometimes we hesitate to go visit somebody or drop in on them or call them because we don't feel like we're trained as a counselor or trained in psychology or anything like that. But just giving your support, showing your support in some way, shape, or form can mean everything to that person. You don't have to be a big philosopher. You don't have to be trained. But just letting people know that you're there for them, that you resonate with them, you empathize with them. And if they open up, if they ask you for advice, then of course the sochams, non-basochams, tram pragnavadam sabasate, gatasam zagatasam, nanam sochadam, dhirasthitana moyate. These kinds of truths can be very consoling. They can be a balm. A lot of people are giving all their energy to grief and trauma when they do have another option. That same energy can be channeled in a positive way. But we can't force them. We have to make ourselves available to them, to support them, even if it's only liking and commenting. I always feel like there's some story of loss on Facebook, and I'm trying to support the person, so I'm thinking, should I hit like? I mean, is that appropriate or not? Do I like that this is happening to this person? But in the comments, I mean, it's kind of petty, but a lot of our members in Salt Lake City, they don't respond on Facebook. They just don't stoop to that level. But I try to do as many likes as I can. I try. If I hear a good talk, I want that speaker to know about it. I want to support them because everybody needs encouragement. Even the so-called best speaker in the world. Abraham Lincoln, after he was shot by John Wilkes Booth, they found a piece of paper, crumpled old piece of paper in his pocket, and he'd been criticized from every field. I mean, he was at the helm in the worst period of our country's history. And there were so many people that criticized him from the north, the south, and all. But they found out after his death that he carried around one of the rare newspaper articles that praised him, that said he was doing a great job. And you'd think someone like that, who had such verbal skills and such leadership skills and such vision, he doesn't need encouragement. But that was not the case. He needed the encouragement, So we need to encourage people, not just waiting until they're down. Don't just send flowers to their funeral. Just have a culture of encouraging people. Be always on the lookout if someone's doing something good, don't assume, oh, they know they're good, or there must be a lot of other people that are telling me. Probably not. Honestly, probably not. I heard about a minister. He was kind of keyed on how much positive feedback he got. Every Sunday, one of his members would stand in the back and sell CDs. And he always got encouraged when he would hear the number of CD sales at the end of the sermon. So one Sunday, he gave what he thought was a particularly insightful and inspiring sermon. So afterwards, he went back to the back and he said to this parishioner, he said, "How many CDs did you sell?" The guy said, "We didn't sell any, but someone returned one from last week." So everybody needs encouragement, everybody needs a good word, even people that you think are aware of their skills and are already getting enough support. And probably more important than anything else, you need to be an encourager. You need to be a supporter in any and every way that you can. Just a word, a like, a comment, a drop in with some prasadam, some muffins, um, a good word. My gosh, you did that so well. You're such a good speaker. You make such beautiful flower garlands. I love your devotion to the deity. Oh my gosh, that new outfit is just unbelievable. We're supposed to be a spiritual society, and that means that every one of us has the duty to encourage everyone else. And you know what? If you be an encourager, then when you need encouragement, Krishna has noted all that you've given, that you've inputted, that you've poured into other people. So when you come to a point of crisis, Krishna will make sure that there will be people there to encourage you.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that nectar. Yes, Sri Kumar Prabhuji, please ask the question.
Charudas Prabhu. So really appreciate your beautiful talk. It was really inspirational. And even more than the talk, Prabhuji, what personally I really admire is right behind you, the temple that you built in Utah. It's just amazing that you're able to, bring up such a structure and continue the teaching there. So that's really inspirational. So thank you so much for your work, Prabhuji, and prosperity. Yeah. So Prabhuji, I just had a quick comment.
That's what we're talking about, Prabhu.
So
quick study.
Okay. So Prabhuji, regarding this pandemic, as you said, it could be that the whole world is being pruned by Krishna, or you can say by their own karma, if you will. So basically, as we understand it, but the thing is, whenever something traumatic happens or setback happens, then the difference between human beings and plants, for example, a tree, when it's pruned, it can't do anything about it. But a human being, when bad things happen, we can analyze, with our limited capacity, what happened, and can we do something to prevent that bad thing happening again, or can we improve it? So, for example, in my own, very limited analysis of this pandemic, COVID pandemic, basically it happened in China. And from a spiritual perspective, to me, what it's saying is that we need to increase our Krishna consciousness activities in China, for example, okay, because all those causes are still there. All the wet markets, not only in China but other countries also, all the causes are still there, and more pandemics could be coming down the road unless we do something to correct it and improve it. And it looks like their culture prevents them from, changing that habit that created this problem. So we need to spread the four principles, like healthy diet, not killing animals to eat them, those teachings, because Buddhism went to China and was very successful. Now Krishna consciousness needs to come them and take it a step further. And that's just my humble opinion, Prabhuji. I just wanted your comment. Do you think that's something that we should do, or that's misguided?
Are you asking a preacher if we should preach?
Yeah. Agree, Prabhuji. Okay. I think that's your answer. Okay.
Well, Subha wanted me to give brief answers, so that's a brief one.
Okay.
But
Correct.
you know, the thing is that there's two types of people. There's basically innocent people. They may be eating meat and drinking, but they're just following the lead of misguided leaders, and they can be persuaded. That's why we preach. You know, we try to reach those people who haven't got good direction, and mostly they'll listen, and mostly they'll tend to give up their bad habits. But then there's another class of people who are committed to increasing sense gratification. If you tell them they should reduce their needs and live simply, at best they ignore you. At worst, they get angry at you. Just now, Trump opened millions and millions of acres of wilderness for drilling for oil. They'll never stop until they've destroyed the earth. They've destroyed life on the earth. They've destroyed. They're busy destroying themselves, but because they have positions of leadership, they have influence. They end up destroying so many other living entities, other human beings, other animals, and they end up threatening the planet itself. So those type of people are not going to be persuaded. But in the meantime, we preach to try and get as many people, innocent people, to adopt a better form of life. And as long as we have democracy, there's a chance of voting out the rascal leaders. But you'll also notice, particularly in our country, and I'm not going to say any names or get any more specific than this, you'll also notice that the rascal leaders are trying to undermine democracy. Am I right?
Yes.
They don't want democracy, because if enough people get knowledge, know what's what, pravitam cha navritam cha, know what's to be done, what's not done, then they know their time is limited. So they tend to want to undermine constitutional rights, the democratic process, in order to wrest power for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So at least as long as there's democracy, we try to win people's hearts and minds and votes. And should there not be democracy, then probably a fight will be called for. But in any case, Maharaj Parikshit, when he came upon Kali beating the cow and the bull, he said, Kim nu balashu surine kalina but apramata parmatishu yovrtunishu vartise. He said the age of Kali is very strong for those whose senses are out of control. It's very difficult to resist the temptations of meat eating, illicit sex, and gambling, especially when the politicians make them so easily available and so cheap. The federal government gives $37 trillion to support the meat industry. So meat is not cheap, but it comes to you cheap because the government supports it with trillions and trillions of dollars of subsidy every year. So it says that, the sinful lures of the age of Kali are very strong for those who are weak-willed. But for those whose senses are under control, it will not affect them. So even if we can't influence overall collective, we can influence people ourselves. Para dukkha. Make your life perfect. Make your children's lives perfect. Try to positively influence people with whom you have daily contact. And then distribute books and prasadam, do festivals and preach. Try your level best to change as many individual hearts as you can. And then we'll see, it's up to Krishna what happens with the collective whole.
Hare Krishna.
There you go.
Yes, Kashish Mataji, please.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandvat Pranam to you. My question is that may I request for the references of scriptures for the prayers that you have quoted in your lecture? How you mentioned that Prahlad Maharaj said that maybe the rain or shine his ultimate prayers, so that we can meditate upon that.
I'm sorry, I didn't actually hear very clearly what you're saying.
Okay, I'll just repeat. I'm just requesting for the references of the scriptures for the prayers that you have quoted in your lecture. so that we can read it once again?
I don't, let's see, can you refresh my memory? I just had a theme, and as verses came into my head, I just threw them in, but I don't have them written down anywhere. If you remind me or refresh my memory, I could.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Pravitam Cha Nivritam Cha was the most recent one. That's from the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad, or that's Divine and Demoniac Nature, 16th chapter, sorry. What's to be done and what's not to be done. I forget the other ones. Yashahamanugrahame, Krishna's special mercy when you're pruned, is from the 10th canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much to all the devotees, and thank you so much, Grace Charu Prabhu, for this wonderful Krishna Katha. I think Bhadra Prabhu wants to share something again. Yes, Prabhu. Prabhuji, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Charu Prabhu, I think she is talking about the poetry you read.
The poetry.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Oh,
Yes.
I think she's talking about that poetry because I was going to ask you for that poetry. I think she's talking about that poetry.
okay, just Google it. My life is but a weaving.
Uh-huh.
I choose the colors.
I see.
My wife is but a weaving between the Lord and me. I cannot choose the colors, but he worketh steadily. Put that line, my life is but a weaving, put it into Google. I think it might be by an anonymous Christian hymn writer.
Okay.
I'll tell you who wrote a lot of really good Christian hymns. If you're interested in this kind of thing, look up the work of Francis Havergal. Francis Havergal.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through all of the Christian hymns, or many of them, to see which ones were, pretty close to our own bhakti tradition. And I think the best bhakti poet and songwriter in all of Christianity is Francis Havergal. Listen to this, for instance. This is one poem she wrote. This is the one that caught my attention initially, and then I looked for other poems by her and songs, and she's pretty much got a good sense of bhakti. Here's the one that I first take my life, Lord, and let it be consecrated to thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for thee. Take my lips and let me sing, always only for my King. Take my mouth and let it be filled with messages from thee. Take my silver and my gold, not a mite would I withhold. Take my intellect and use every power as thou shalt choose. Take my will and make it thine, it shall be no longer mine. It shall take my heart, it is thine own, it shall be thy royal throne. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at thy feet its treasure store. Take myself, and I will be ever only all for thee. Francis Havergal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I would request all the devotees to please turn on their audios and videos so we can properly express our gratitude to His Grace Charu Prabhu for this amazing, giving us such deep understanding from scriptures. How do we handle the tough situations, and how do we keep our faith, our gratitude, our connection in those situations, which every one of us will be going through sooner or later. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for this wonderful katha. Let's express our gratitude by loudly chanting 3 times. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Thank you for inviting me into your wonderful Sangha on this Saturday morning. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for your attention. I'm honored.
Charu Maharaj ki jai.
His Grace Charu Prabhu ki jai, Prabhupada ki Jai. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai.
Jai. Hari Bol.
Krishna. So we also have program today evening for those who would like to join. We'll be talking about the glories of Purushottam month. So that's the kirtan will begin at 5:30 and the lecture, the discussion will happen at 6 p.m. You're always welcome to join that as well. Okay, so at this point we will end this call. Thank you so much to all the devotees for your precious time and in this wonderful class. I have prepared some notes from the class which I'm going to share in the group. You are more than welcome to use them as reference or share them with anyone whom you find useful. So I'll share them right now after this call. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namo. And I also, before